fact that maybe perhaps the crop circles are caused by somebody using, the military using some sort of microwave device or something like that. Because it's an interesting thought, just because he's right. Like, you use corn like pixels, and you basically zap it from space, and it burns an image in there. I can kind of see that, but as other people point out, actually in this case, I think he's I don't think he's correct, because which is kind of odd, because again, the stuff that the conclusion that I've come to is right up his alley, and it's basically that it's caused by the same things that caused the UFOs. Because if you actually do the research on crop circles, there are people who spent their entire lives researching them and doing serious research on them, and there are a whole bunch of phenomena that are associated with them that are identical. Balls of light, um, strange mists, beings that appear and disappear and don't, seem to be very strange in various ways. It's basically another one of these activities by, the Fae, most likely. They're basically some sort of weird being that periodically visits or slips through the walls between worlds and does whatever the hell they do. Actually, that's a good way of putting it. I've mentioned them repeatedly, but it's interesting. If you look at fairy lore from medieval times, there were a number of things that fairies, or the fair folk, or the fae, and just different names for them. They have many names. There are several things that they were known for. Right? They were known for stealing children. Still do that to this day. They were known for spoiling crops. What are crop circles? Essentially, would look at it from the farmer's point of view, but they're a very artistic way of spoiling crops. So if you think about it from that perspective, like, forget about how is it caused exactly or whatever. Think about the different effects. To the farmer, it's just infuriating. So there's some emotional feedback for you for a fae. It attracts attention from people around, which is also often infuriating for the farmer. So it's like a huge attention gathering thing. So that kind of that fits with the Fae methodology right off the bat. And people have noted as well that the more attention is paid, like sometimes when people are really investigating the whole crop circle thing, they'll say aloud, like at a crop circle, they'll say, sort of like, maybe another one will appear tomorrow with three, with some change in it that they describe. And sometimes, boom, it'll happen. Not always, but again, it fits that kind of resonant, psychologically responsive, in a weird, slippery way. That's a thing that comes up in the paranormal a lot. Is something seems to react. It doesn't react completely predictably, of course, because then you could box it in, but it seems to have some kind of connection. So I'm kind of a little puzzled why Jack would think it was some military weapon, as opposed to basically it's the UFOs again. That they're not UFOs. They're some sort of entity. But let's go to the comments here. So we have comment number 1, basically clueless. Comment number 2, comment number 3. So we have a lot of people that basically just kind of go, "Wow, is this this has got to be a troll because it's way out there, blah blah blah." But again, they just don't know anything, so whatever, ignorant. Some other people talk about how that there have been military technology that has was kept secret for a long time, or even organizations like, what is it, DARPA, which is a research arm of the various military and secret organizations. I mean, that we only knew about DARPA since the 90s, but it had been around since the 70s. So there's an entire organization, like huge military fund organization. Nobody really knew it existed. I mean, I'll get into that kind of thing when I talk about conspiracies, because people have the most screwed up ideas, like, on both ends. Some people are incredibly credulous, and some people are incredibly anti-credulous, to the point where neither position makes any sense. As usual, it's somewhere in the middle. Okay, so here we got a guy called Max Supernova. I must say, I find the skeptics and the sort of bombastic idiot types, their names are like the names they pick. You know, they just tend to be the ones that are like that tend to have a very raw name. You know, Max Supernova. You know, John Gunfist or something. You know, they're they're Republicans, they're conservatives, they're idiots, and they come off that way. But it's funny how their names are indicative of that. He goes, why not try some actual science? Look at the stalks. So they've been blasted with microwaves or just bent by a guy with a 2x4 and a rope. Though, again, that is a good point. And what's interesting is, share a little research with you, again, but from the, look up the Crop Circle websites, find the ones that are run by the people that have done the research. And what's interesting is they're right. That the guy, Max Supernova, is right. They have found the difference between a genuine crop circle, as in something created by a mysterious, agency, and one made by a couple of hooligans with a rope. Well, typically, of course, the mysterious ones are more perfectly made, but humans can make pretty nice ones as well. But the unreproducible by humans, or at least by known factors, I'll say actually, I shouldn't say humans because it could be some, they could have some device that could do it. Is they find that the ones that are genuine, one of the unmistakable features is exactly that. They appear to have been microwaved because there are what do they call them, the elbows, the knee, or not the knees, the elbows, the parts of the corn or whatever the crop is where it bends. A little part has a little knobby bit where it's sort of a joint for the plant. Those tend to be in a genuine crop circle, a genuinely weird crop circle. Those are burst from within as if by basically they've been hit by high intensity radiation of some sort, and the water inside turns into steam and it bursts out through there. That has been found repeatedly, many times in these anomalous crop circles. And there's some other things. What is it? I think there is a pattern of what is it? Small iron spheres or stuff that's basically again produced by you hit the ground with a lot of energy and it causes some crystallization and rearrangement in the minerals. There's a whole bunch of things. Like again, people have done 20 years of research on it, and the anomalous crop circles have anomalous features. Flat out. I mean, again, and they've done. These are people that were trying to get things to the scientific standard. So of course, again, all these commenters, they just go crop circles. This guy's a loony. It's like, yeah, all right, whatever. You're an ignorant fool. Let's see. So what else have we got here? I agree. Actually, I agree with what they say about. Again, it puzzles me why Jacques, was saying this about the military weapon. It might have just been a fancy of his, just kind of going, yeah, well, it could be this thing or whatever. I mean, it's not his main thing. He's not really into the military stuff, but it's as some people mention in the comments about cattle mutilations, like when people say it's the government, this and that, and they say, well, the government has all kinds of land and has all kinds of money to have its own cattle herds. It has its own crops, that it could zap with weapons, and they're right. They're completely right. Cattle mutilations are not, in all likelihood, from the evidence, not done by the government. They're also done by the Fae or UFOs or whatever you want to call them, anomalous phenomena, essentially. And that's another thing I'll just mention in passing. Cattle mutilation is a real thing. It's been going on forever. Oh, sorry, that was the third thing that the Fae do. In fairy lore, they steal children. I've already discussed that. There's tons of evidence on that one. They spoil crops, and they kill animals, livestock. What are three of the big paranormal, fringe things? Cattle mutilations, crop circles, and well, the one about kids being, I guess that one isn't really mainstream, but that's something Chris and I pretty much dug up on our own. But again, that's even personal experience. I even had a weird experience like that when I was I don't remember how old I was, but I was young teens, maybe 12 or 10. I'll do a thing on that anyway. But that's what they do. They mess with people's minds. they wreck crops, and they kill livestock.